My view is like, you can't control the outcome all the time. Sometimes it should go the other people's way. It shouldn't always go your way. So you get motivated by the losses. You stay motivated through the winning. What you can control is your process. You can control those intangibles. You can control the work ethic, the consistent discipline, your attitude, your culture, how much you care. All those things are in you. They just need to be drawn out of you.
There is no easy way to say this, but by this moment, the decision is to cut you off.
What's up, y'all? My name is Clark Hazlitt, better known as Adventure Athlete, and welcome back to another video. Today, y'all are gonna get the chance to hear about how I got cut from my first ever football team, the Gallos Negros, in the 2023 LFA football season. Now, before we get into the details as to how I got cut from the team, I'm gonna take y'all back and run you guys through memory lane from my 2023 experience with the Gallos Negros.
Are you ready? Let's go!
Everything starts back to November of 2022 when I first got in touch with the team. Originally, there were 3 LFA teams reaching out to me. They were interested in me playing for them. The first one being the Raptors from Mexico City, the Reyes from Jalisco, and the Gallos Negros themselves. When I originally got in touch with the Gallos Negros general manager, I felt a connection right away, which led me to want to learn more about the program. After being in talks with the general manager for a couple weeks, he passed on to me the phone number for the head coach, and he and I had a good long conversation for about an hour and a half, just talking about the program, the goals moving forward, and what my role would be like joining the team. And with what I was being offered in my contract, it was looking like Gallos was going to be the best fit for me. I hadn't officially got a contract from Reyes or the Raptors, but after coming off a good season in 2021, the Gallos Negros started to feel like a good fit. Now, this was all rainbows and butterflies until about a month before I was getting the chance to move down to Querétaro. I got the chance to talk to the offensive coordinator. He told me that he loved running RPOs and a spread offense. Now, one thing I wish I would have done a better job of was really getting the chance to sit down and talk with the offensive coordinator before signing with the team. One of the main issues was my offensive coordinator didn't speak English. Not being able to speak English to converse with your import players, right away I already saw issues start to arise. Now, with all this covered, let's now dive into the details. The team was going to start training in January, but none of us import players were going to be reporting until February. I reached out to the team and told them I'd be available to come a month early if they might be able to provide some accommodation for me, and unfortunately, they said that there was no room in the budget to have me down a month early. I negotiated with them to fly me down in January, and I would cover all of my costs for the accommodation and food for that month of January leading up to when we'd be moving into our import house once all the rest of the guys come down in February. I managed to find a loft apartment on Airbnb, and I lived with a family right next to the football field. I also was really close to Costco, so everything was convenient. As an import player, we need 3 things: a comfortable place to live, a grocery store close by, and somewhere to train close to the practice field. I had all 3 of those things for my first month in January. The only little issues that I had was that the management started to change what was written in our contract as the players were getting ready to come down. While living down in Querétaro during the month of January, I was conversing with all my import players who were back in the States. A lot of them were asking me questions about details as to how things were going, what our housing arrangement was going to be like. And originally in our contract, it had stated that all of us imports were going to be staying at Arkansas State University in Querétaro, have all of our meals paid for at the cafeteria. We were going to have a team truck. We're going to have access to the gym, pool, rehab, Wi-Fi, everything we need. This was one of the big selling points for me as to why I didn't look into going to play for Reyes or the Raptors, was because in previous teams in Mexico, we'd be living in a certain area and be practicing 45 minutes away. So I wanted the convenience of being able to live at Arkansas State and practicing just 2 minutes away from where we were living. After being down there early and kind of having my boots on the ground, I started to learn that the Arkansas State University wasn't actually going to be something in the plans. Now, all of us imports had this in our contract. It's sad that I feel lied to about what was in my contract and that the guys didn't actually end up holding up their end of the bargain. To be playing American football overseas in the LFA, having these contracts that the teams are supposed to abide by and already kind of having issues, that's just one thing that, I learned you got to roll with the punches in Mexico, and just how things can be planned one certain way, they'll change the next minute. I will give the management credit for Giles. They tried to do their best to honor contracts and to be very transparent, but that was one of the biggest problems I had, is that right away as I arrived in Querétaro, I started to see that the management was kind of being a little wishy-washy with some of the things they were promising us players, and none of my boys back home in America knew about these things. While living in Querétaro for the first month, my biggest goal was really to build bonds and relationships with my Mexican teammates, so that when the time would come that my American imports would come down, I'd be able to be the binder of both Mexican and Americans, just so we can start to kind of feel that team camaraderie together. That's one thing that I learned. It's interesting, you know, you have a solid Mexican group foundation, and us imports, we do things totally different, so it takes a little while for us to kind of mesh together and really feel like a team. But like I said, that was my job coming down early. I also learned the year before that was just going to pay dividends as the season goes on. Fast forward to February, the imports started to roll in. We lived all in a house together. Like I said, I mainly had the offensive guys and 2 defensive backs, so whenever we wanted to go get extra work, we could do so. Our apartment was about 5 minutes from the field where we practiced and trained, and then we'd also train at the stadium downtown, which was about 25 minutes from where we were at. And then we had the 2 linebackers and 2 defensive linemen living in an apartment about 20 to 30 minutes away depending on traffic. Again, my whole thing about coming to Querétaro was off the field. I really wanted to have a nice situation, and there was so much traffic in Querétaro, and I think it's in all the cities in Mexico in the evening. We were always stuck in traffic going to practice. Another interesting thing is, you know, we were promised to have a truck for us to drive. That took a while to get put in place. We had a van. The communication aspect of having a driver was different. We just definitely had to deal with a lot of hiccups of, you know, having the driver late and little things like that. I don't want to really touch on that too much. I don't want this video to sound like I'm, you know, complaining about everything, because I know in Mexico you got to roll with the punches, and we really tried to do that throughout the season. Things just kept adding on and adding on and adding on, and as a player you're kind of living in this state of like fight or flight nonstop, and that's ultimately what the 11 imports and I went through. But I don't want to get ahead of myself, so let's get back to February. The imports arrived. Got to get the chance to know all my guys, and you know, I still got respect to all my boys. Some of the guys I don't talk to anymore now. Some of the guys I still talk to every single day. But again, it's all love to the boys, man. We really went through some stuff that I don't think any other team fully went through in the LFA last year, but I do know a lot of teams had the struggles of just bonding Americans with the Mexican players. Now let's get to the football side of things. After the first 2 weeks of training, me and the boys were kind of looking at each other like, whoa, like our offense as a whole, we got some skill players, that's great, but the schematics that we were running, not good at all. We were running a Pee-wee offense, and that's no disrespect, but I'm just going to say it how it is. The original offensive coordinator that they had hired was not at the level that was needed to be successful in the Liga Football Americano. This is when the guys and I started to come together and you know, try to talk to the coach and work with him and partner with him. And that's, you know, obviously that's the goal as a player and a coach, to have that nice, good bond and relationship. The issue was, because the coach didn't speak English, it was so hard to communicate and so hard to present potential plays to be installed. So as there started to be this little bit of like animosity regarding play calls, man, it kept getting delayed that, you know, there might be a coaching change, there might not be, as the coaches started to see and the owner started to see that there was some issues. As time goes on, you know, there's this little bit of chaos within the offensive group. 2 weeks before our first game, we had our scrimmage, and unfortunately our offensive coordinator wasn't going to be making it to the scrimmage because he had other obligations regarding his work, and that's when they decided to make a job change. They hired a different offensive coordinator just 2 weeks before the season. This is where I'm looking at everything like, whoa, this is some chaos, man. And again, I got no bad blood with the Gallos Negros. I want to make this video to explain to everyone kind of what went on. This is how the game goes. As an international player, we're just a piece of meat, man. Like, that's the reality of it. You're going to go play for a team, and if you don't perform, if you don't correlate from what's on practice to the field and to the game and be successful, teams are going to choose to go a different direction. And that's kind of where I'm leading to, just setting the backstory of, you know, explaining everything that's gone on. I also just want to shine light and use this as a learning experience for anyone else who comes down to Mexico. This is what you're going to expect. There's a lot of little chaos going on in different parts, off the field, on the field. And as a player, man, like I said, we were just fight or flight mode nonstop. We were also really struggling with these meal plans that they had promised. I'm going to tell you right now, you just got to know how to feed your boys. If that's what's in the contract, just take care of them. If not, man, then we would be able to cook for ourselves, no problem. Having it be in the contract, that's something you're expected. We hadn't even been paid for the preseason, so we weren't going to be getting paid until the first game of the season. So we had to go this whole month of like paying for our own food that we didn't have planned because it was in the contract. So that's another one of those things, man, where it's like, obviously the general manager and the general manager assistant, all those guys had a lot of things going on for them, and so did all the players themselves, because they made a lot of these promises to the players. So it was just chaos. That's plain and simple, chaos. Man, like everything's coming back to me now. Like, there's so many little things off the field that, like, I don't even want to get into. You know, just communication is one of the biggest things. And as American football players, when we come down to a Mexico or go overseas, we're so used to having this clean cut, crystal clear schedule. And if you're late, man, you're getting your ass beat if you're late. In Mexico, it's a little different. You know, when you go play overseas, you got to be weary, especially in Mexico. Obviously, in Europe, it's totally different. Like, they'll take care of you over there for good. And you just got to learn to roll with the punches, man. Like, my boy Casey and I, we always say, it's Mexico, so you never know. Let's get back to the scrimmage. We go into our first scrimmage. You know, me and the boys, we trained for those 2 weeks of new plays and installs. We really kind of worked together and tried to suggest plays to the new OC, and was a great guy. He spoke English. We were able to, you know, work closely with him and feel like we had a good player-OC bond. We had our scrimmage. Things were all right. Things were good. Offense still executed. We moved the ball. Defense was looking good. When it comes to the practices, man, like, everything was good with regard to practices. The way they had practice run was great. The only issue that I had with practice was we'd be going full contact sometimes, like 3 days a week, even during the season. After our first game, man, like, because we didn't do so well, the coaches decided for 3 practices during the week, everything was going to be live and the quarterback was going to be live. So, heading into week 1 of the season, you know, we had a good game plan, I felt like, going into week 1 versus the Reyes. This is the city that I had played in the year before, so I knew a lot of guys on the opposing team. We came in and got absolutely stomped, man. Absolutely stomped. And this is where I really realized, like, you win ball games in Mexico and overseas in the trenches. The big boys up front are going to be the ones that are really going to win you the game. I have a lot of respect for my boys who played O-line for me. Other teams were really able to identify our weaknesses at O-line. I'm going to tell y'all right now how it is. We had a DN who played at Tennessee lining up against a rookie O-lineman who I was bigger than. We got our ass beat in that first game. We got out-coached. We got out-schemed. The other team was just flat out better than us. We didn't actually score a single point in that first game. Never in my career, anytime had my offense not scored. After this first game, not only that, but because we only had 2 weeks to prepare with this new OC, I'm not going to blame this on my receivers, but we had a lot of wrong routes called. On top of that, we had a receiver coach that would sub in and do these weird substitutions, which I didn't get. When, you know, we have certain plays designed for our certain receivers, and those receivers aren't in for those plays, man. It was blowing my mind. So all the chaos continued, and I should have seen the writing on the wall. Unfortunately, you know, that's how it was. We lost like 47-13. Our defense scored 2 touchdowns on turnovers. I got beat up, bro. Like, I'm talking beat up. Play the clip. I'm just getting fired up right now thinking about this game because so many high hopes and aspirations, and then to come out and just get absolutely stomped, man. Coming into week 2 of the season, our first home game in Querétaro in 2023. We were playing a team that had just lost the week before, the Mexicas from Mexico City. This was our big get-back game. We needed this win. Coming into the game, let's just say this was one of those games when it comes down to coaching and execution. It is what it is. My head coach was micromanaging my offensive coordinator. We went into halftime up, I think, 21-14, 21-7. Didn't even meet as an offensive unit. Didn't make adjustments. Like, me and my boys were talking, but didn't see our OC. We're just expected to go back out there and play. And obviously, you know, when you come into halftime, after the first 2 quarters, the teams are feeling each other out. You make your halftime adjustments, and then you go out there and finish the game, right? The Mexicas made their halftime adjustments, put 7 guys in the box. We didn't make our halftime adjustments, so we were still trying to run the ball and then do these little fluky screen passes. They came out, hit us in the mouth. Of course, you know, I made mistakes. Everyone made mistakes. We're going into a position to win this game. You know, defensively, they score on the last possession of the game, and we lose. So now we're 0-2 in the season, man. Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh. I almost forgot. No one told us this, that the season before this team went to the national championship and lost in a close game to the best team in the LFA. Just about every single one of the players on that team that was good got traded. All these boys keep getting traded. Him traded, him traded, him traded, him traded. So our import players are key players because if not them, you know, the depth really drops, man. Like, I'm talking really drops. The 2 best running backs in Mexico arguably left Giles. So we had to bring in 2 American running backs. Don't even get me started regarding receivers, man. The good-ass receivers left Giles. Like I said, when it comes to national players, it drops off from skill level-wise, also compared to the American players. So all of these things, man, was just adding up, recipe for disaster. And obviously now we're 0-2 on the season. Everybody's on the hot seat. OC's on the hot seat. DC, me, especially the leader of the offensive unit. We got to go into Funidores, which is the repeat game of the year before national championship. Those boys were playing good already. So us 0-2 versus a team that's 2-0. in Monterrey. And if, for those of you guys who know, if you go play football in Monterrey, Monterrey is the god city of American football in Mexico. I'm also beat up again after 2 games. Beat up. My bones still hurt months later, which is crazy. I think it has to do with the fields in Mexico because it's literally turf on top of concrete. So we head out to Monterrey for week 3 of the season. We go up to Monterrey. It's a cold game, so it was nice to be, feeling like I'm at home. We balled out. Our defense played good. Offense played good. The catch-22 is, respectfully, I'm able to make my audibles and my checks as the game goes on, and I did a lot of that in this game. There's a lot of times I'd make checks or I'd be extending plays in this game to keep us in the game. This was our best game that we had played all year as an offense and a defense, I'd say. When it came down to the end of the game, we couldn't finish in crunch time when it mattered most. The best thing about week 3 was that we did show strides from week 1 and week 2, and it helped save my career that I balled out. My receivers balled out because it was in Monterrey, which is close to Saltillo. Other teams and their coaches came to watch the game and watch us play. So let's bring it back to now. We're coming home to week 4 of the season. Another home game in front of our fans. I love the fans in Querétaro. They always came out to show love and support. We had a good week in practice. This was the week I started to really want to present things to my OC. Like, hey, coach, I'd love to have this play installed. Let me know what you think. And I'm always going about it respectfully. This is, again, where I started to see more writing on the wall because respectfully, my coach said, hey, it's my job to be the offensive coordinator and install plays. I'll hear what you have to say, but just know it's my job. And I'm like, whoa. Like, as an OC and a quarterback, man, we got to be like this. We got to work together. So to kind of hear my coach kind of shut the door in my face. Coming into week 4 of the season, we had nothing new installed. So each game, each week, right, you usually install new plays from watching film that will work well for the team that you're going to be playing. We were playing the Dinos. They were also, I think, 3-0 coming into play us. So a lot of concerns coming into this week 4. I think I started to get in my own head coming into this week 4 of the season, feeling pressure, knowing that my job is on the line, and I started to do a little bit too much. This is also the game where I took a beating, man. The Dinos had 3 American D-linemen. 3. They were handing it to my all-Mexican O-line. And that's the harsh reality of it, man. Like, when you have, like I said, the boys up front, you win ball games. It's week 4. I'm still, just getting average 6 to 7 sacked a game. At least 10 times I'm knocked down a game or I'm hitting the ground. We struggled offensively the first couple drives. Right before going into halftime, we started to get the ball moving. Came out after halftime, 2 possessions. I got benched after that. Shout out to my backup quarterback. He came in, tried to do his best, move the ball a little bit, but the game was already kind of in the bag. Their offensive coordinator at the Dinos, he picked our defense apart, and we just couldn't execute on offense. End of week 4, 0-4, man. This is kind of when I started to get the cold shoulders from management, things like that. Again, it's like pure management. You got to do what you got to do to be what's best for the organization. Everyone was looking at me like I was a problem. Even the Mexican players were kind of insinuating that I was the problem. But it was deeper than that, and no one was really kind of scratching on that surface. Heading into week 5, I talked to my boy Pope, wide receiver number 1 at the time, shoot, man, this might be my last game with this team because 1, I didn't know if I could keep taking a beating like this, and 2, we're about to be 0-5 on the season. I'm not giving up on the team, but I just know, if you know, you know. It's a game within a game within a game. If you're not producing, the team's gonna go a different direction. We flew up to Tijuana. My family was coming down for this game, so it was extra special for me. We were playing a team that was struggling as well in the season. So this was a chance for us to get our first win under our belt. Playing against Trayvon Boykin, Eldridge Massington, and Terrence William, guys who all touched the league, man, they diced up our defense. And when it comes to offense, we did actually install some plays coming into week 5, but there was only so much that I could do. You guys saw from the game day vlog, I tried to do the best I could. And I made mistakes myself, and there's nothing I can, make excuses about that. I'm not perfect, but when it comes down to it, man, we faced a tough loss. Facing 0-5, it's just not a good feeling. It's something I'd never really been a part of on any team. I did get the chance to see my parents briefly after the game, because after that we were flying right back home that night. That's when things started to be, a little interesting. I remember getting back home that Sunday night. There's a big group chat with all the guys combined. Then we have our separate import chats and all these things. As you play ball overseas, there's group chats everywhere. Guys in the group chat speaking in Spanish started, throwing some shade on my name and suggesting that we need a new quarterback and that they had another guy that could come in and replace me. Once the American guys got word that this shade was being thrown on my name, they started throwing some comments into the group chat. It started to be this culture collide. Obviously, tensions are high, emotions are high. We're 0-5 on the season. No one's happy. Some guys that aren't getting the ball think that they should be getting the ball. Things should be running differently than they're not. The Mexican players thought that they could run the coaches and tell the coaches what to do. Then when it would come back to us, American players were like, whoa, I don't know if we should be doing this. Clashing. And it's not, I don't want to say it's that deep, but it was that deep to the point where the culture of our team was not what it needed to be. We had guys that thought that they were being leaders for the team that were talking that shouldn't have been talking. The tipping point was, this group chat message where guys were just bickering and going at each other. And like I said, a lot of it was at me, and I'll take that, man. Like, I get it. I'll be the face of the franchise that takes the fall for everything. Shout out to my guys who did have my back. Yeah, man, it was just a culture thing that was just crashing completely. That Monday, all of us imports went into the office to have a meeting with the owners. Like in the NFL, they go into the owner's office and they sit down. That was me, man. I decided that I wanted to be released. But before I could even ask to be released, he told me this.
There is no easy way to say this, but by this moment, the decision is to cut you off.
So they decided to cut me, and it was because of the culture clash. Because obviously, if there's guys that don't want to play for me, then they're not going to play at all. So they needed to make a change. I respect that. The coaches, did highlight and see that, I wasn't the main problem with our offense as a whole. But unfortunately, that was all I could do was, pack my bags and leave. On top of that, my best receiver, Pope, he left with me too, man. So that's really when the kind of collapse started to happen. I packed my bags and I flew home. Little did I know that 2 weeks later, I'd be moving back to Mexico. If you made it this far in the video, your boy got traded. For those of you guys that were following along, y'all saw. Make sure you guys stay tuned for my next videos. I'm going to be talking about what that trade process was like and share some game day vlogs with you guys. That's going to conclude this video as to how I got cut in the LFA in 2023. And again, I hope you guys can take this video and learn a little bit from my experience. Again, I'm not throwing shade. I just wanted this video to be educational for you guys out there wondering what it's like playing ball in Mexico. This is the truth as to what happened with the Gallos Negros in 2023.